I wanted to move on to property. We're in a nice place right now. What was your first property investment? And talk to me.
Yeah, my first property investment was the house that I lived in. So my first residential home. I was actually on the phone to a client when I was 20 years old, and client was about to sign. Said, fantastic. I was about to get my first big deal, like the 30 grand contract, the big one.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool. I was like, Jane, that sounds wonderful. Are you in a position to get the contract back to me within the next 7 days? She was like, yes. And then all I heard was dum, 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 dum. Black woman and child, yeah. My stepdad is blazing tunes downstairs, like no remorse.
And you're on the phone.
I'm on the phone.
30,000. Oh, damn.
Trying to close a 30 grand contract. And then I came off the phone. I rectified it, but I came off the phone. And I was like, I got to move out. I got to move out fast. So at that point, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to save as much money as I can. At that time, it was like 50% of my income. Bang, bang, bang. Saved that over 3 years. Bought my first house in 2009 when I was 23, and moved in there. 3-bed house, 2 reception rooms, which was really good. I used the reception room as my bedroom, rented out 2 bedrooms upstairs. 3rd room was my office. £500, each of the tenants, mortgage,
paid for.
£1,100 sorted.
Paid for house hacking. Perfect. So your net worth is just going up. You're paying your mortgage off. You're not, in terms of your actual living, your personal living expenses, it's minimal. So your net worth is just going up and up every month.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah. So that's how I started, because, I realized that no matter how much money you got coming in, you've got to manage it, you've got to safeguard it, you've got to protect it, you've got to look after it, you've got to nurture it. Money grows where it's nurtured and cared for. So the more you nurture your money, the more you care for it, the more you look after it, the more it's going to grow and ascend. And that kind of decision was the decision that allowed me to go on and buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 properties down the line when most of my peers weren't able to buy their first.
That's the thing.
So when all of my friends were, not my friends, but all of my peers were going out and buying flash stuff when they were 20, 21, 22, I was there stacking my income, bought my property at 23, and I was able to accelerate.
And would you say from there, things just start kicking off, especially with business as well? Everything in conjunction is just growing up and up and up and up.
Yeah, well, one of the things that happened for me in my business quite early on, which was quite powerful, was that people thought it was super weird, but I thought it was super fun, right? So that reception room that was downstairs, as I built a team, I made that my office because it was a bigger room, right? Okay. And I built a loft conversion up the top and whatnot. And I made that the office, and that was brilliant. And I had 3 staff. That came in there every day. And it was just beautiful and brilliant, because at the time my missus used to leave. She used to leave and go to work at like 8 o'clock. Staff used to come in at 9, and then they used to leave at like 5. Missus used to come in at like 5:30. So it was just like calm, it was crisp, it was smooth, it was clean. And I had no overheads. None. I had no overheads. Yeah. And then I got big and brave and decided to get some big office, and then that closed down. So then I had to go and get a bigger office, which was costing us like thousands and all that sort of stuff. So then that's when business started to get more complicated.
Would you say even with the tenants as well, it was all calm, there was no problems, it was just smooth?
Super smooth, super friendly. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about that process, I had a guy that called Mo that lived with me, and he used to work in finance. So he used to tell me everything that he knew about finance, and I used to share with him everything that I knew about marketing and everything. So we just trade knowledge, trade information, and it wasn't like a house share where they have access to like the living room and stuff like that. But when we were in the kitchen, we'd just catch up about our day, have a good chit chat, and it was all good.
Oh wow, nice. That's great that it turned out to be a positive experience. Then in terms of property now, what would you say, I've noticed that in terms of your investments, your property investments, you use different ones. What would you say is your most favorite property style of investing? So is it HMOs, buy, refurbish, refinance, buy to let? What is your favorite property investment?
Yeah, definitely HMOs. That's my zone right there.
The big one.
Yeah, I like the idea of having the high profits, and given how I started and the knowledge of it, of living with other people and stuff like that, and kind of having a sort of HMO set up in the house where I live, I was just pretty used to it, and it's like super seamless for me. And now I've got loads of good agents managing my properties all over, so that's really, really smooth and just highly efficient.
When would you say one needs to start, outsourcing to agents? Would you say straight away from the first, or would you believe they need to experience it for themselves and do it themselves?
That's a good question, and the answer is it depends, right? It depends how much time you got, it depends where the property is, and it depends what your goals are.
Okay.
So if you're a 19-year-old and you're at university in Nottingham and you've just bought a 3-bed place in Nottingham, it kind of, and you finish uni at 2:00 every day, it kind of makes sense to manage it yourself. It's good experience, it's good character building, you learn so many other stuff. But if you're 40 years old and your property's in Nottingham and you live in London, get an agent. You know what I mean? That's like mandatory. So it just depends on what your goals are. I've got one property I manage that I say I manage it, I don't do anything. Because one of the guys that I used to live with in the house that I used to live with.
Well, the house share, the first house.
Yeah, in the first house. He was living with me for like 3 years. He's been there about 6 years now.
Oh, wow.
And he's amazing. Old guy, like in his 50s. And he just manages the whole property for me.
Oh, so you have a house share, but since you have that rapport with him, he manages the whole thing for you.
Correct.
So it's by building relationships, rapport, just by being a nice person, essentially.
Yeah. There's no like technique to it. Yeah, you've got to swerve in this way and you've got to say this. Like, well, there are some strategies that you can use, don't get me wrong, but most of it is just being a nice, likable person. Do you know what I mean? And he pretty much sorts out everything. Anything goes wrong, he just calls me and just lets me know, and then
wow, that's actually a good one. I didn't think about that. That's great.
So if you're like a student in university, or you've just finished uni and you buy a property near a student town or whatever, you've got a good relationship with one of the tenants, like tell them to manage it, reduce their rent, happy days, everybody's a winner.
Literally, that's